Greetings and welcome to the Horror Report, a breakdown of all the scary films and TV shows you either love, hate, or are too scared to face alone. As always, there are spoilers ahead, so you have been warned. And if you watch to the end, you can find out what I thought of the movie. The Loved Ones is a brutal Australian horror movie released in 2009. The film was written and directed by Byrne and stars Robin McLeavy as Lola, a twisted teenager whose actions are inspired by the absolute worst of Western serial killers. This disturbing and intense movie explores guilt, emotional trauma, and the darker side of human nature. Not forgetting, it also demonstrates how commonplace power tools can be used to create your very own zombie horde. Stick around to see that later. The film opens with a high school student, Brent, driving with his father through the countryside. They're distracted while having a disagreement about his dad's choice of music, when a mutilated young man appears in the road in front of them. Brent loses control of the car, swerves off the road and crashes into a tree, injuring Brent and killing his father. 6 months later, Brent is in a bad way. He's been trying to use drugs and self-harm as a way to cope with what happened. The school formal is coming up, and rather than attending the after party with his friends, he just wants to hang out somewhere and smoke. He's been doing little else since his dad died. As his friend Jamie scores a date with Mia, the resident brooding badass, Brent is approached by Lola, a shy-looking classmate. She asks Brent to be her date for the prom, but he turns her down. He's already going with his girlfriend Holly. As Brent walks away, Lola stands in place and stares through his soul. I'm sure that's nothing to worry about. Later, back at Brent's house, we find out that his mother Carla is also struggling with moving on from the death in the family. She is terrified that her son might die in a car crash and pleads with him to take a taxi to the formal rather than ride with an inexperienced driver like Holly, his girlfriend. Brent storms out to have some time alone at his favourite hangout spot. He climbs up to the middle of nowhere, gets high and puts on some music so loud that he doesn't hear the man approaching from behind. Just as he takes his earphones out to answer a call from his mother, the mystery man shoves a cloth in Brent's face, knocks him out and bundles him into a car. Meanwhile, Jamie arrives to pick Mia up, and after finishing his joint is met not only by her mother but also her policeman father. With any luck, he doesn't work in the narcotics division. Holly arrives at Brent's place to collect him but is met by Carla, Brent's mother. She hasn't been able to contact her son by phone and couldn't find him at his usual hangout. After Holly makes some unsuccessful calls, Carla phones Mia's father, the police officer, for help. Mia's mother hears what's happening and looks haunted. It seems like there's more backstory to Mia's family that we haven't seen yet. The kidnapper's car drives out of town, stopping only to pick up some roadkill along the way. He gets home and his identity is revealed. It's Lola's father. Don't pretend you're not surprised. He unveils the date he captured for her and she couldn't be happier. Lola then starts making preparations for her special party, adding Brent to her psychopath scrapbook and trying on a new dress that her daddy bought for her. There's something not quite right about these two. It's probably fine though. Brent finally wakes up and finds himself in a scene from Texas Chainsaw. Or Resident Evil 7, depending on your level of nerdery.
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's time for supper.
He has a look around and gets a good look at Bright Eyes. The woman with the hole in her head next to him appears to be Lola's mother. Brent quickly assesses the danger he's in and starts to struggle to get free. However, it looks like his chair has been bolted to the floor. Now, I'm no detective, but I don't think this is the first kidnapping that the Stone family have been involved with. In order to keep their guest quiet, Lola injects bleach into Brent's throat and renders him almost silent.
Press a little harder, princess.
Lola injecting bleach into Brent's vocal cords is very similar to torturer and murderer Bob Berdella, who would do the same thing to his victims in order to keep them quiet. Lola poses for her prom photo with her date, which of course is taken with a Polaroid camera. The camera of choice for serial killers, psychopaths and hipsters. Daddy Stone then suggests that they get Bright Eyes in a photo with the happy couple. Lola isn't too happy and yanks her mother's hair to make her wince in pain when the flash goes off. Lola is clearly very manipulative and likes setting her father against her mother. As Bright Eyes screams, it becomes apparent that she's been subjected to the same bleach treatment as well. I wonder if we'll see why hole in head. Over with Mia and Jamie, they're enjoying a private party in Jamie's car with vodka and weed. Eventually, Jamie persuades Mia to join the festivities and she staggers inside with him. Back to the Stone family, they're enjoying a meal of milk and what seems to be the greasiest chicken in the southern hemisphere. I mean seriously, as you might be able to tell, I'm somebody who knows his way around a bucket of chicken or two, but even I was disgusted by this. After seeing this, I couldn't eat again for another 55 minutes. Lola and her dad share the wishbone. He wins the wish, but when he sees Lola get upset, he tells her that his wish was for her. She reciprocates and says that she wishes for him. Lola then asks her dad who's prettier between Lola and Bright Eyes. Brent then tells Lola that he needs to go to the bathroom, probably to throw up. Lola grabs a glass and instructs him to go there and then, or else he'll get a nail through his business. As expected, Brent struggles to go, but manages a release just as the hammer is about to come down. Just as Lola is about to start on another round of psychological torment, Brent seizes the chance to strike. He loosens the bindlings from his wrists, kicks Lola across the room and makes his escape. Daddy Stone pursues the escapee around the property in his car, which leaves Brent little choice other than to climb a tree to get away from this crazy family. Lola then locks her mother in her room and joins her dad at the tree. They knock Brent out the tree and take him back to the party. So warning ahead, we've only just touched the tip of the insanity iceberg here. They nail Brent's feet to the floor with f***ing knives, while Lola mounts Brent and instructs him to cry. He's in immense pain right now but doesn't give in to Lola's demands. He looks at her with burning contempt. He's not shedding any tears for her amusement. Outside of this madness, Mia's father, the local police officer, is out looking for Brent. He finds an iPod at the scene of the kidnapping and goes to Brent's home to update Carla and Holly about what he's found. Back at the party, Lola is showing Brent her scrapbook, and we get a look into just how much evil his daddy-daughter team has caused. It's an illustrated diary of all the boys that have been brought to Lola's place for a playdate. I don't know if you notice a detail from the Kia Willis pages here. Lola refers to him as a crybaby, and then turns the page to a picture of Kia and Lola. They were f***ing children when this started. Messed up levels are going off the chart here. After that, Lola reveals that her last date was Timmy Valentine, son of the local police officer and Mia's brother. Brent realises that this must have been the mutilated boy who stepped into the road to cause his father's fatal car crash. This explains why Mia's mother looked so haunted when her husband took the call from Carla about her missing son. There are so many layers to this film. That brings us up to date with the most recent page in the book being dedicated to Brent. Lucky last, as Lola puts it. She then tells her dad that she's ready to draw. In keeping with the theme of the movie, i.e. things just have to keep getting more messed up, the instrument that Lola uses for drawing is a fork and her canvas is Brent's chest. After admiring her handiwork, the initials LS with a heart drawn around it, Lola calls for the finishing touch, lots and lots of salt. Back at Brent's house, Holly goes in search of clues and in Brent's room finds a card he wrote for her. He might not be able to say I love you out loud just yet, but at least he can convey it in writing. The votes have been counted, and wouldn't you know it, Lola and Brent have been chosen as the king and queen of the dance. As Lola and Brent have their spotlight dance, Lola comes to the realisation that he isn't her Prince Charming. Something just isn't working for her. However, her soulmate is in the room with them. Okay, here we go. Are you ready to turn the freaky up another notch? Turns out Daddy Stone is Lola's prince. It's always been him. That's why her scrapbook is so full of victims. She wants to marry her father. Just as they're about to kiss, Brent distracts them by falling down into the chair with the razor blade necklace behind his back. Thank Christ. The mood has been ruined for the happy couple, and so we move on to the next level of horror. They open up a trapdoor in the room and throw down some roadkill to the things living in the basement. Daddy Stone leaves the room and comes back with a power tool. Lola is about to do her first drilling. I really hope she means with the drill. It turns out that they like to make zombies by making holes in their victims' skulls and pouring boiling water in. The way the Stone family deal with their cast-offs is partially based on the work of Jeffrey Dahmer. He also used a power drill to try and lobotomise his victims. He wanted to turn them into obedient zombies. After drilling a hole in their heads, he poured acid in there. You may not be surprised to find out that nobody actually survived these lobotomies. As Lola comes at Brent with the drill, her inexperience shows and she doesn't apply enough pressure. The drill bit glances off the front of his skull. For a moment it looks like she can't go through with the job at hand, but after some helpful advice from her new boyfriend, father, she tries again and we get subjected to some amazing grinding and crunching Foley work. I f***ing love this movie. The pair step back to examine Lola's handiwork, and as the kettle boils, Lola explains to Brent that this process they've been using turns their guests into them, whoever them is. Lola has trouble getting water into the hole that she has made, and her dad has to step in to open up Brent even more. Cue more squelching and grinding and crunching. It's horrible, but it is so much fun. Brent uses this moment to wiggle free of his bindlings and slash Daddy Stone's face with his razor blade necklace. Brent then rips the knives out of his feet, throws the drill into Father Stone's face and stabs the out of his neck while he's staggered. Lola then jumps Brent and tries to get the upper hand by sticking her finger in his head hole before she gets knocked out. Like I told you, this movie is sick. Brent then manages to throw Daddy Stone into the basement pit where Lola's previous dates descend on him and eat his face. Lola then takes Brent by surprise, dumps him in the pit and in a fit of rage throws anything heavy she can find right at his head. Once she sees her dad's done for, she closes the trapdoors, leaving Brent to his fate. He scrabbles around in the dark and finds the flashlight and a hammer that Lola threw at him. He uses these to dispatch the basement cannibals and then surveys the scene down there. Nothing but bones and filth. Meanwhile, Lola is spiralling out. She goes to her mother's room and suffocates Bright Eyes with a pillow. Laying in bed awake, Holly recalls Brent mentioning that Lola invited him to the formal. She calls Paul, Mia's dad, the cop, and he shoots over to investigate. Brent manages to get Paul's attention by throwing bones at the hatch. The lawman then opens up the trap door, but fails to notice Lola looming up behind him. She stabs him in the face and kicks him into the cellar. Lola then informs Brent that she's off to kill his mother and girlfriend in revenge for what he did to her. Lola gets the scrapbook, the shoes, a knife and sets off. Robin McLeavy is brilliant here. Lola is like this soulless girl trudging towards her prey in an absolute daze, singing a pretty enough song to herself. There's an amazing sense of melancholy and malevolence to this character. Lola comes to a stop and hides when she hears a car coming. It's Holly on her way over to the stone place. The scrapbook hitting the windshield makes Holly stop the car, and in that moment Lola attacks. Back in the basement, Brent piles up all the corpses and climbs out. The kid will not quit. He jumps in Paul's squad car and tears off down the road. At this point, Holly's managed to get away from Lola and is running along that same road. Brent is pushing the car to the limit, and as he comes over the rise in the road, he has to swerve to avoid hitting Holly. Unlike at the start of the movie, this time he keeps control of the vehicle just long enough to smash straight through Lola. Holly then jumps in the car with Brent for a traumatised reunion. But wait, there's more! Lola then uses her knife and messed up arm to drag her broken and bruised carcass towards them for one final attack. Lola is a horror legend. Brent throws the car into reverse and ends Lola with a bumper to the face. This last shot of Lola slow zooming into her face is fantastic. It ratchets up the tension right to the point of impact. They drive home and Brent reunites with his mother. The nightmare may be over, but the damage the Stone family have done will haunt them all forever. The Loved Ones is one of my favourite films and is a great example of over-the-top horror. It's especially impressive considering this is Sean Byrne's directorial debut and only took 4 weeks to film. The story moves at a wonderful pace and each scene feels like it belongs. At 84 minutes, it's tight, snappy and really hard-hitting. Acting is great across the board in this movie, with particular praise reserved for Xavier Samuel, Robin McLeavy and John Brumpton as Brent, Lola and Lola's dad. Xavier starts as a beaten down teenager, racked with guilt over the death of his father, but seems to find the will to live as the film goes on, despite the constant mental and physical torture at the hands of Lola and her father, inspired by either the human drive to survive or out of sheer hatred for his captors. Robin McLeavy's performance is transcendent. Lola is an incredibly complicated and iconic villain who has tons of layers. She's an absolute monster who seems to be able to keep a veneer of normalcy in her day-to-day life. At home, she's a violent and sadistic torturer, but in public and at school, appears to be a shy loser who possesses little threat to her classmates. An amazing job done by this actor who was actually 28 at the time of filming. Finally, John Brumpton as Daddy Stone. John Jarratt, who you should know from Wolf Creek, turned down the role of Daddy Stone in this film to avoid typecasting as an Aussie psycho. This could have been a one-note villain in the hands of a lesser actor, but John brings some amazingly subtle touches that flesh out the character. In moments of menace, he's assertive and vicious. He nails the wide-eyed psycho look to a T, but it's in the quiet moments between him and his daughter that really stand out to me. The furtive glances towards her as she invites him to watch while she tries on a dress are a great example of this. He's ashamed of himself and what he's feeling. He knows he has to leave, but he can't seem to. With just a few facial expressions, he paints the picture of this confused and messed up predatory monster. So that's The Loved Ones, a messed up nightmare that stacks horror upon horror and ends with a satisfying smack to the head. I live for fucked up movies like this. And if you do too, get in the comments and tell me what your favourite ones are. And as always, I genuinely mean that. I love discovering new scares and me reminding of ones I might have forgotten. Please give this video a thumbs up and comment below if you enjoyed my work. It's free for you, but it means a great deal to me. Check the recommendations for more dark content from Prites and Sprites. Thanks and stay spooky.